Hey, welcome to Render Me Jobless, the podcast where we talk art, labor, and what happens when a robot takes your job for free. Hey guys, my name is Frances, but online I go by TwistedFae. I'm a professional freelance artist based here in Arizona. I draw, paint, and design both traditionally and digitally. My work takes a human brain, a bit of heart and soul, some sweat and blood, and a pinch of existential dread, especially when it comes to commissions. If you know, you know. So today we're diving into how the gig economy has been absolutely sideswiped by the rise of generative AI. It's messy, so grab a towel and let's wade through these murky waters together. Today, we're asking what happens when you've trained your whole life to do something can now be easily mimicked by a machine in seconds. And more importantly, what can we actually do about it? Let's start at the beginning. What is the gig economy? The gig economy is a labor market made up of short-term, freelance, and contracted work. So you're doing the jobs but without the benefits or protections of traditional employment. Artists in this space are like the Ubers and DoorDashers of the creative world. We use platforms like Fiverr, Etsy, Patreon, and Instagram to post, pitch, and find gigs. On paper, it sounds freeing. Be your own boss, set your own hours. But in reality, it's unstable unless you've got backup income or a financial cushion to land on. I mean, think about it. You're juggling algorithm changes, platform fees, and shrinking paychecks. Clients are now being replaced by platform rules, and steady jobs are becoming scattered gigs. That is, if you're lucky. And then enter AI. To pour salt in the wound, engineers and developers have the audacity to call these systems tools for artists. These tools like Midjourney, ChatGPT, and Suno aren't here to help. They're replacing us. Logo design done in 10 seconds. Mood board instantly. Lo-fi album art just one prompt away. Just type the vibe and tweak it with a click. The infamous artist and creator of Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki, has said it himself while talking to a group of programmers. He found AI to be utterly repulsive after his viewing of an AI-generated movement demo. He decimated them, stating that he felt strongly about AI being an insult to life and would never integrate it into his work. The following clip explains the reasoning for their testing and Miyazaki's reaction and final thoughts on the subject.
どこへたどり着きたいですか。まあ人間が描くのと同じように絵を描く機械を作りたいんだ。はい。
地球最後の日が近いって感じですね。これは人間の方が自信がなくなってくるから。
Miyazaki's sentiments reflect a deep-rooted belief in the value of human creativity and craftsmanship in art. For artists like us, the rise of AI isn't just a tool. It's an existential threat to our very purpose and philosophy behind creating art. It is an entire economic shift that is uprooting artists like me from their fields. Platforms like Fiverr, Etsy, and other social media platforms have become inundated with AI-generated content. So now we artists are no longer just competing against other creatives in our field. We're competing with bots who don't eat, sleep, or drink. It just takes the prompt and gets to work. Easy peasy pumpkin squeezy. No resistance, no violated rights, and no wages owed. Another contemporary digital artist named San Does Art on YouTube sums up the bottom line in a very eloquent way.
You guys by now probably know how I feel about AI, and just in case you don't, let me put it real clear and concise for you. I don't stuck with it. Now, you guys may believe what you will, but for me, I think generative AI is the epitome of the devaluation of art, of trying to cut costs, trying to cut human labor, trying to cut money that goes to artists. And it really just cheapens art and sees it as a means to an end as opposed to an entire creative process and human expression. The way that it's going right now, I really don't believe that it's technology that's here to help the everyday artist. It's actually gearing itself towards helping people who already have a lot of money keep more of their money instead of having to pay that money to hardworking artists. It's like the most dystopian take on art.
And AI isn't just shifting the industry, it's shifting the entire economy around us. Now, let's take off our artist hat and put on our economics hat. First up, monopsony. Sounds like some sort of mumbo jumbo spell, right? But it's actually one of the biggest reasons artists are getting squeezed out of their own careers. A monopsony is when there's only one to a few major buyers of something, and those said buyers get to call the shots. In our case, these buyers are platforms like Fiverr, Spotify, Patreon, and even meta platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or their newest platform, Threads. We, the artists, musicians, actors, writers, and so on, are the labor. These platforms get to dictate and control who or what gets seen, who gets paid, and how much they get paid. And trust me, these buyers are no generous patrons of the arts. They're here for the money to be made off of the fruits of our labor. And sure, platforms love to say that they democratize art, but only if you ignore the fact that they're the ones who write the rules, control the rankings, and skim 20 to 30% off of your earnings from that site. Artists aren't the price makers anymore. So in the language of economics, we no longer have bargaining power. And in the language of an artist, we're getting screwed. Simple as that. And this shift isn't just philosophical, it's hitting us financially. So even if we land a gig or sell a piece, the deck is stacked against us. And now we have to deal with asymmetric information, which occurs when one side of the party knows more than the other. And buyers don't often know what they're purchasing, if it was made by a human or by AI. And honestly, most people can't tell. And that should matter. Why? Because real art is more than just a pretty image. It's a memory, experience, study, sleepless nights, and intention. It's made between school, work, raising kids, and pushing through burnout. It carries emotion and effort that AI can never replicate. But if the buyer can't tell the difference, we're expected to match AI speed and pricing, and suddenly we become the plugin that's trying to keep up. But I guess that's the asymmetry of it. They don't see the difference. They don't see the hours of sketching, the years of experience, the nuances, or even the mental exhaustion of being your own brand on more than one social media platform at a time. They just see an image they like, and nowadays, at least, everything is assumed to be AI until you notice that it's not. On the flip side of this conversation, we don't know when our artwork is being stolen to train AI. We don't know which sites are feeding the bots our contents or how they bury or let alone rank our posts. The audience doesn't know what they're buying, and the artist doesn't know where their work ends up in the end. So that information gap kills trust and ultimately pricing power. And then we also have other things like externalities. So let's chat about that. So externalities is kind of I suppose basically it's a fancy word used when someone causes different effects like damage, but doesn't have to pay for it. Nobody really, there's pros and cons, there's negative and positive, like I said. But an example of this would be like a factory dumping waste into a river and then leaving the community to deal with it. Like, you can't put a price on that, you know? That's what I mean by that. So in our case, AI companies are the factories and our work is the waste. They use our content to train their models without permission, I might add. They profit while we lose our jobs. So that for us is a classic negative externality. And in the end, the client just sees fast, cheap results. Meanwhile, we're left to absorb the cost of a quote unquote creative revolution that barely acknowledges the people it's built on. So it's kind of like getting sampled in a hit song and then getting sued for pointing it out. And for us, we don't feel the scraping, we just feel the loss. So now that we've talked about the mess, the economics, the power imbalance, and the sneaky costs of AI, now we have to ask, what's actually being done about it? And the answer to this question is not much, honestly. The laws are lagging behind, especially with how fast technology is changing. I mean, platforms are quiet, as expected, and artists, we're stuck somewhere between invisible labor and intellectual property limbo. I mean, copyright laws were written in the analog age, and this year, barely in 2025, a court ruled that AI can't hold copyright. And I guess to like other people, that sounds like a win, but it doesn't stop companies from scraping our work. There's no consent, and there's no compensation either. An additional protection artists have is called the DMCA, which stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It was enacted back in 1998, and it was meant to protect copyright holders in the age of the internet. So basically, it works like if somebody reposts your work without proper credit, you file a takedown notice, boom, done. But here's the thing, DMCA only works after the theft. When it comes to AI, the damage is already done. There's no takebacks. The database of your work is already built. Your style has been absorbed and processed. And let me tell you something, there is no such thing as a takedown form for a neural type of network. And companies aren't required to say what data they train on. So unless you see your style in an AI-generated image, you'll never know that you were scraped. It's like they broke into your studio, copied all your brush strokes, and said, "We didn't steal your painting. We just taught a robot to paint like you." And copyright scraping is basically when AI developers collect massive amounts of data and content, including copyrighted material without permission via algorithms. They're not just pulling from the public domain, they're pulling and scraping from everything. DeviantArt, ArtStation, Instagram, even your own personal portfolio site. Copyright notices, watermarks, it doesn't matter. If it's online, it's fair game to them. And their excuse, we're not copying, we're just learning. But these companies aren't students. They're building commercial tools with our work and selling access to it. That's not education, that's exploitation. And then not to mention, we should toss our labor laws into the blender. We're freelancers. There's no benefits, no protection, and now we're expected to compete with bots that don't eat, sleep, or pay rent. Platforms want speed, scalability, and trending aesthetics. Translation? Make it fast, cheap, and in the style of AI that I saw over on TikTok. But we don't have unions. No collective bargaining, no shared rights. So when AI eats our gigs, we can't even organize around it. So basically, it's a catch-22 for us. If we leave a platform, any platform, we lose visibility. If we stay, we have to play by the rules that were not made for us. And if we speak up, we risk being shadow banned, deprioritized, or flat out deplatformed. It's like working in a factory where the lights are constantly flickering, the rules are changing on a daily, and that machine next to you started doing your job for free. That's platform power. And it is a big reason as to why the gig economy now feels less like freedom and more like digital serfdom. I mean, just look at Spotify. Musicians pour in time, money, and creativity. In return, they earn fractions of a cent per stream. You need around 3,000 plays just to make minimum wage for a month. And if the algorithm doesn't like your release, you're invisible. No playlist, no traction, no income. The platform controls it all, not you or your audience. So yeah. And then We've talked about copyright chaos, the platform exploitation, AI creeping into our gigs. So now the next big question is, what can we actually do about it? First up, AI companies are training on our work. They need to pay us. Right now, companies are scraping our images, text, music, and feeding it to their models. And then they're monetizing on those outputs. That's labor, unpaid labor. One solution is to treat this like a licensing system. If your work is used to train a model, you should get paid, either directly or via a collective rights system, much like royalties, but for data sets. I mean, systems like this already exist in music and film industries, so why not for visual artists, designers, or writers? Second, we need tech companies to have accountability and transparency. AI-generated work should be labeled clearly. Clients deserve to know what they're buying, if it was made by a person or via a machine. We can't compete fairly without transparency. Platforms should also be held accountable. This includes clear algorithms, fair payment systems, and opt-outs for AI training, as well as protection from shadow bans. I mean, like, if they profit from us, they owe us clarity and fairness. Artists also need each other. Too many of us are suffering quietly. We literally need to organize, whether it's co-ops, unions, online collectives, whatever, it matters because you're not alone. Speak up and support others and push back. And finally, maybe the answer isn't to fix a broken system. Maybe it's to build something better. New platforms like Kara, Artful, VGen, and Inkblot are popping up all the time. They're small right now, but they center around artists. They're literally the seeds of a healthier ecosystem that needs watering to grow. The gig economy basically wasn't designed to protect us. The platforms weren't built to pay us fairly, you know? The algorithms weren't even built to value us. But that doesn't mean that we stop. We don't stop creating, we don't stop showing up, and we definitely don't stop pushing back. I didn't become an artist because it's efficient. I became one because I'm human, because my art carries my memories, feelings, and my stubborn defiance. This podcast isn't just about what we're losing, it's about what we're fighting for. And if you're an artist, your labor has value, your voice has power, and your art, your real, emotional, flawed, beautiful art cannot be replaced. Look, at the end of the day, I'm not anti-tech or anti-art. I'm just pro-human, pro-labor, and pro-authorship. If we're going to live in a future where machines can create art, then the people who made the culture for those machines to learn from need to be protected. We need to be protected. Art isn't just content, nor is it just data. It's labor, it's lived experiences, and it's worth fighting for. AI might be able to copy the brushstrokes, the tone, the cadence, but it ultimately can't copy the why. It cannot feel heartbreak. It can't remember the first time your artwork was ever called beautiful. And it cannot pour years of lived experience into a blank canvas, a song, or even a short film. Only we humans can do that. And if we don't protect that, we're not just losing our jobs and gigs, we're losing our culture. Anywho, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you're an artist, stay loud. If you're a supporter, please stay curious. And if you're an algorithm, go train on something else. Bye now.